The alarm blared through the celestial horizon, its deafening wail bouncing off the metal walls as Yegor Meyers jolted awake from his bunk. The ship shuddered violently, sending tools and personal items clattering across the floor. This wasn't a standard system check or a minor asteroid impact. Something had gone terribly wrong. All humans to emergency stations. Repeat, all humans to emergency stations. The computerized voice announced over the intercom, its artificially calm tone contrasting with the chaos unfolding. Yegor stumbled out of his quarters, nearly colliding with Ensign Rothamar, a Zolonian crew member whose blue-tinged skin had turned a pale gray from stress. The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in sequence, a sign of extreme distress among his species. Meyer, we've been hit by debris from the Arcturus belt. Hull breach in Sector 7. Rothamar's translator device struggled to keep up with his native clicks and whistles. Captain Krozak has ordered all humans to the central chamber for protection. Protection? From what? Yegor asked, steadying himself against another violent tremor. The vacuum, obviously. Rothamar's upper eyes narrowed. Your species cannot survive even brief exposure to space. Everyone knows this. The intercom crackled again. Attention all crew. Critical hull breach expanding. Estimated 15 minutes until catastrophic structural failure. Yegor pushed past Rothamar and sprinted down the corridor toward the bridge. The joint human-alien mission aboard the Celestial Horizon was only 6 months old, the first long-term collaborative expedition between Earth and the Galactic Confederation. Tensions still ran high between species, with countless misconceptions on both sides. When he reached the bridge, he found Captain Krozak, a hulking Drevlian with stone-like skin, staring at damage reports with his engineering team, all aliens. No humans in sight. Captain, what's the situation? Yegor asked, breathing hard from his sprint. Captain Krozak turned, his crystalline eyes widening in surprise. Myers, you should be in the protective chamber with the other humans. We have a level 4 breach. I'm the chief engineer, sir. I need to know what's happening to my ship. The captain gestured to a holographic display showing the Celestial Horizon's external structure. A jagged hole approximately 2 meters wide was visible on the starboard hull, with fracture lines spreading outward like a spider's web. Debris impact. The exterior repair drones are malfunctioning. Radiation from the belt has fried their circuits. Internal sealant measures have failed. Krozak's voice was grim. We're losing atmosphere in 3 sections, and the breach is widening. The structural integrity field cannot compensate much longer. Yegor studied the schematic, his mind racing. The emergency hull plates would need to be manually attached from the outside, interrupted Lieutenant Gavrix, the Solarian engineer whose slender, elongated fingers danced across the control panel. And as we all know, humans cannot survive in space without extensive protection. We've dispatched Zovok and Trell in EVA suits, but the magnetic tethers are malfunctioning due to the radiation. They can't reach the breach site. How long until they fix the tethers? Yegor asked. Too long, Captain Krozak replied. We have perhaps 15 minutes before the ship breaks apart. The hull material is buckling under the stress. Yegor made a quick decision. I'll go out and fix it. The bridge fell silent. Then, almost in unison, the alien crew members began to speak over each other. Impossible. Your lungs would explode. Your blood would boil. Your body would freeze. Captain Krozak raised a hand, silencing them. Myers, I appreciate your courage, but this is foolish. Humans cannot survive in the vacuum of space without a pressurized suit. Not even for seconds. That's not entirely accurate, sir, Yegor replied calmly. Humans can survive brief exposure to vacuum up to about 90 seconds before permanent damage begins. NASA and Roscosmos documented this decades ago. With proper preparation, I can make it. The aliens exchanged skeptical glances. Even if you could survive, Lieutenant Gavrix argued. Your hands would be useless in seconds. The cold. Space isn't actually cold to the touch, not immediately, Yegor countered. In a vacuum, heat transfer occurs slowly. I'll have enough time. Captain Krozak studied Yegor with newfound interest. You seem unusually confident about this, Meyers. Sir, before joining this mission, I specialized in extreme environment engineering on Earth. I've studied the effects of vacuum exposure extensively. Yegor met the captain's gaze. And right now, I'm the only option we have. After a tense moment, Captain Krozak nodded. Very well. What do you need? A tether line, the emergency hull patch kit, and about 5 minutes to prepare my body. As Yegor gathered supplies in the airlock preparation chamber, Dr. Limick, the ship's Vexorian physician, entered with a medical kit. His tentacle-like appendages carried various instruments. The captain informed me of your plan, the doctor said, his voice conveying clear disapproval. I must register my formal objection. Human physiology is not designed for vacuum exposure. Noted, Doctor. Yegor replied while applying a special thermal gel to his hands and face. But I need your help anyway. What do you require? Dr. Limick asked reluctantly. I need to hyperventilate with pure oxygen for 3 minutes to flush nitrogen from my bloodstream. Then I need a dose of anti-inflammatory drugs and vasoconstrictors. The doctor's appendages twitched in surprise. You actually understand the medical preparation for vacuum exposure? Like I told the captain, I've studied this. Yegor connected himself to the oxygen supply. I'll also need you to inject me with emergency coagulants before I go out. Dr. Limick prepared the injections with remarkable efficiency despite his clear reservations. You realize that even with these preparations, you risk permanent injury or death. Radiation exposure alone. The breach is on the shaded side of the ship, and I'll be out for less than 2 minutes. Yegor interrupted, checking his tether line. Radiation is the least of my concerns. As he hyperventilated with pure oxygen, filling his lungs and saturating his bloodstream, Yegor mentally prepared himself for what was coming. The pain would be intense. His eyes, ears, and sinuses would begin to suffer immediately. The moisture on his tongue would boil. His skin would swell, but not explode as popular fiction suggested. After completing the oxygen procedure, Dr. Limick administered the medications. These will help minimize tissue swelling and reduce the risk of embolism, the doctor explained, his tone now professional rather than dismissive. I've also included a mild stimulant to keep you conscious. Thank you, doctor. Yegor secured the hull patch kit to his belt and moved toward the airlock door. Captain Krozak's voice came through the intercom. Meyers, we have less than 10 minutes before critical failure. Are you certain about this? Absolutely, Captain. Yegor positioned himself in the airlock, cycling the chamber now. As the inner door sealed, Yegor took one final deep breath of pressurized air. He emptied his lungs completely, a crucial step to prevent lung rupture, and held his breath as the outer door began to open. The violent decompression hit him like a physical blow. The air was forcibly sucked from his lungs despite his effort to hold his breath. His ears popped painfully as the pressure equalized, and he felt the moisture on his eyes and tongue begin to evaporate instantly. The temperature didn't drop immediately, contrary to popular belief, but he knew the cold would come soon enough. Using the tether line, Yegor propelled himself toward the breach, counting seconds in his head. His body felt strange, swollen, and tight, but not exploding as the alien crew had predicted. The pain was intense but manageable, especially with the drugs in his system. The damage section came into view, and Yegor's engineering training took over. The breach was worse than the scans had shown. Jagged metal edges protruded outward where the debris had punched through, creating a hole large enough for a person to fit through. The surrounding hull plating had buckled, with stress fractures radiating outward. Working quickly, Yegor positioned the emergency patch, a self-adhering, composite material designed to bond molecularly with the hull. His hands were beginning to feel numb, but still functional. He pressed the patch against the breech, smoothing it from the center outward to eliminate air bubbles that would compromise its integrity. The seconds ticked by mercilessly in his head. 30 seconds. 45. His consciousness began to blur at the edges as oxygen deprivation set in. His hands, exposed to the vacuum, were beginning to swell painfully. With the patch secure, Yegor activated the molecular bonding sequence with a sharp twist of the central mechanism. The patch began to glow as it fused with the hull material. 60 seconds had passed. His vision was tunneling, darkness creeping in from the periphery. Using the last of his strength, Yegor tugged on the tether line, twice the signal for emergency retrieval. As the automatic winch began to pull him back toward the airlock, his consciousness faded completely. He awoke to the hiss of oxygen and the bright lights of the medical bay. Dr. Limik stood over him, all four of his appendages occupied with various medical instruments. The pain was extraordinary. Every part of his body felt bruised and battered. "He's conscious," Dr. Limik announced, his voice betraying surprise. "Remarkable." Captain Krozak moved into Yegor's field of view. "Engineer Meyers, the patch is holding. You've saved the ship." Yegor tried to speak, but his throat felt raw and damaged. Dr. Limik held up a restraining tentacle. "Do not attempt to speak yet. Your throat and lungs suffered significant trauma from the vacuum exposure." The doctor administered a soothing spray to Yegor's throat. "You were exposed for approximately 87 seconds. By all accounts I've studied about human physiology, you should be dead." "Told you." Yegor managed to rasp, immediately regretting the effort, as pain shot through his throat. Captain Krozak made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "Indeed you did. It seems we have much to learn about human resilience." Over the next few days, as Yegor recovered in the medical bay, the attitude of the alien crew toward him, and by extension, all humans, changed noticeably. Where before there had been professional courtesy tinged with doubt about human capabilities, now there was genuine respect. Lieutenant Gavrix visited on the third day, bringing a data pad filled with technical specifications. "We've modified the emergency protocols," the Solarian engineer explained. "Your experience has revised our understanding of human vacuum tolerance. We're incorporating this knowledge into future emergency response plans." Yegor nodded, his voice still weak but improving. "It's a common misconception, even among some humans." "That is what fascinates me," Gavrix admitted, his elongated fingers tapping thoughtfully on the data pad. "Your species has such a contradictory relationship with knowledge. You discover things about yourselves, then collectively forget or misrepresent them." "We're complicated," Yegor agreed with a slight smile. Dr. Limik entered with new scan results. "Your lung tissue is healing remarkably well," the doctor informed him. "The subcutaneous bleeding has resolved, and your corneal damage is minimal. However, I'm concerned about potential long-term effects on your cardiovascular system." "I'll be fine, doctor," Yegor assured him. "Humans are tougher than we look." "So, I'm beginning to understand," Dr. Limik replied, his professional demeanor softening slightly. "Though I would prefer not to test this theory again." On the fifth day, Yegor was cleared to return to light duty. As he entered the engineering bay for the first time since the incident, he found the entire engineering team, humans and aliens alike, waiting for him. Among them stood Navigator Fiona Olsen, whose warm smile made his heart skip a beat. "Welcome back, Chief," she said, stepping forward. "You gave us quite a scare." "Just doing my job," Yegor replied, suddenly self-conscious about the lingering bruises on his face and hands. "Your job is to keep the engines running," Fiona countered, "not to float around in space without a suit." Before Yegor could respond, Captain Krozak entered the engineering bay. The crew straightened to attention. "At ease," the captain said. Engineer Myers, I've received a communication from the Confederation High Command regarding your actions during our crisis. Yegor tensed. Relations between Earth and the Confederation were still delicate. Had he somehow violated some protocol? They were. Most impressed, Captain Krozak continued, surprising Yegor. So impressed, in fact, that they've requested a formal presentation on human vacuum tolerance at the next interspecies conference. A presentation? Yegor echoed.
Yes.
It seems your little spacewalk has sparked considerable interest among the member species. Many had similar misconceptions about human fragility. The captain's crystalline eyes glinted with what might have been amusement. You'll be given 2 weeks of leave when we reach Proxima Station to prepare your materials. As the captain left, the engineering team crowded around Yegor, peppering him with questions about his experience. The alien members, particularly, seemed fascinated by his first-hand account of vacuum exposure. Later that evening, Yegor found himself alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The breach had been permanently repaired during his recovery, leaving no visible evidence of the near disaster from inside the ship. Mind some company? Fiona asked, stepping onto the deck. Not at all, Yegor replied, gesturing to the seat beside him. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching distant stars through the viewport. You know, Fiona said finally, before you went out there, Rothamar was explaining to me how humans would instantly explode in space. He was quite convincing. Yegor laughed. The exploding human myth is surprisingly persistent, even in the 22nd century. I guess seeing is believing, Fiona mused. The aliens' attitudes have definitely changed. Zovok actually asked my opinion on a propulsion system modification yesterday. First time any Kelbraxian has solicited human input on anything technical. One small step for a man, Yegor quoted with a smile. One giant leap for human-alien relations, Fiona finished, returning his smile. 3 weeks later, as the Celestial Horizon docked at Proxima Station, Yegor stood before a mixed audience of humans and aliens at the Interspecies Conference. His presentation on human vacuum tolerance had drawn an unexpectedly large crowd, including several high-ranking Confederation officials. Contrary to popular belief, Yegor explained, highlighting a medical diagram on the display behind him, human bodies do not explode in vacuum. The skin is surprisingly resilient and acts as a natural pressure suit at least for a short time. While unconsciousness occurs within about 15 seconds due to oxygen deprivation, the body itself can withstand vacuum exposure for approximately 90 seconds before permanent damage begins. A Dralaxian scientist raised one of his upper limbs. But what of the temperature extremes? Surely the cold of space, another common misconception, Yegor interrupted politely. Space itself isn't cold in the way we typically understand it. In a vacuum, heat transfer occurs primarily through radiation, which is a relatively slow process. During brief exposure, the body doesn't have time to freeze. In fact, the primary concern is overheating, as the body cannot dissipate heat through convection or conduction in a vacuum. The presentation continued for nearly an hour, with Yegor fielding increasingly technical questions from the alien scientists. Throughout it all, Captain Krozak stood at the back of the room, his stony features set in what Yegor had come to recognize as an expression of pride. After the conference, as the crew prepared for their next mission, Yegor found himself working alongside Zovok, the Kelbraxian engineer who had previously shown little interest in human input. The captain has assigned us to redesign the emergency response protocols, Zovok explained, his translator rendering his guttural language into smooth English. In light of your demonstration, we must reconsider many of our assumptions about species capabilities. It's a good opportunity to learn from each other, Yegor agreed, pulling up the existing protocols on his data pad. Humans have misconceptions about other species, too. Zovok's head tilted in curiosity. Such as? Well, until recently, most humans believed that Calbraxians couldn't process visual information in 3 dimensions. Something about your eye structure. Zovok made a sound that the translator didn't attempt to convert, presumably laughter. A ridiculous notion. Our depth perception is superior to most species. Exactly my point, Yegor said with a smile. We all have things to learn about each other. As they worked, other crew members occasionally stopped by, both human and alien, offering suggestions or simply observing their collaboration. What had begun as a crisis had transformed into a genuine opportunity for interspecies understanding. 6 months after the hull breach incident, the celestial horizon encountered another crisis while exploring an uncharted region near the Perseus Arm. A sudden gravitational anomaly damaged several critical systems, including life support for the ship's alien sections. This time, it was Rothamar who stepped forward with a solution. Zolonians can metabolize nitrogen dioxide for up to 4 hours in emergencies, he explained to the surprised human engineers. I can access the damaged section and repair the primary coolant line without protective gear. Captain Krozak looked to Yegor, who had become the unofficial expert on species capabilities. Your assessment, Engineer Meyers? If Rothamar says he can do it, I believe him. Yegor replied without hesitation. We should provide him with the tools he needs and monitor his vital signs remotely. The repair was successful, and afterward, Rothamar found Yegor in the mess hall. It seems we have more in common than I first thought, Meyer, the Zolonian said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, now a familiar sight that Yegor recognized as amusement rather than distress. Perhaps there is something to be said for your human concept of leading by example. As the celestial horizon continued its mission, the incident became a defining moment in human-alien relations aboard the ship. The story spread throughout the Confederation, challenging long-held beliefs about human fragility and sparking a renewed interest in understanding the true capabilities of all member species. A year after the incident, the Confederation High Command announced the formation of an interspecies capability database, with Yegor appointed as one of the human representatives to the project. The database would document the verified physical and physiological capabilities of all member species, replacing assumptions with facts. During the announcement ceremony, High Commander Velian, an ancient Drevlian whose stone-like skin bore the cracks and patterns of extreme age, addressed the assembled dignitaries. For too long, we have allowed myths and misconceptions to shape our understanding of one another, the commander's gravelly voice echoed through the chamber. Engineer Yegor Meyers reminded us that seeing is believing and that courage knows no species barrier. Yegor, standing with the other representatives, felt a hand slip into his. Fiona, now his partner both professionally and personally, squeezed gently. Not bad for a fragile human who is supposed to explode in space, she whispered. Yegor smiled, remembering the pain and fear of those moments in the vacuum and the greater reward that had come from facing them. Sometimes you have to break the rules to change the rules. The celestial horizon remained in service for many years afterward, its diverse crew continuing to explore the galaxy. The ship became famous throughout the Confederation as the birthplace of the new era of interspecies understanding. The hull patch that Yegor had applied during those desperate moments was preserved, even after the section was properly repaired, as a reminder of what could be accomplished when preconceptions were set aside. On the 5th anniversary of the incident, Captain Krozak, now Admiral Krozak, hosted a special gathering for the original crew. As they shared stories and memories, the Admiral raised his glass in a toast. To the void between stars, he rumbled, which we once believed separated us, but which we now know connects us all. Yegor raised his glass alongside his alien colleagues, no longer separated by misconceptions, but united by shared experiences and mutual respect. The hull breach that had nearly destroyed the ship had instead built a bridge between species, a bridge stronger than any material could ever be. As the years passed, The incident aboard the Celestial Horizon became required study at both human and alien space academies. Cadets learned not just about the physical realities of vacuum exposure, but about the greater lesson that assumptions about other species' limitations often revealed more about one's own biases than about actual capabilities. Yegor eventually became an instructor at the Confederation Joint Space Academy, where he taught a popular course on emergency engineering. On the first day of each new term, he would begin with the same question: what happens to a human in the vacuum of space? The answers from alien cadets grew more accurate with each passing year, a testament to the changing perceptions throughout the Confederation. Where once there had been fear and misconception, now there was knowledge and respect. The myth of exploding humans in space had been laid to rest, replaced by a more complex and accurate understanding. And in that understanding, all species found common ground not in their limitations, but in their remarkable adaptability and resilience in the face of the universe's most extreme challenges. For Yegor Meyers, the man who floated out to fix the hull barehanded, it was never about proving alien soldiers wrong. It was simply about doing what needed to be done to save his ship and crew. But in that moment of necessity, he had inadvertently sparked a transformation in interspecies relations that would continue to ripple outward, like the expanding wave front of a supernova, illuminating the darkness between worlds with the light of true understanding. And that, perhaps, was the greatest repair he had ever made.